Are you watching a porno in there? No, just a racy, exploitative Italian horror film. Ah, okay. Typical. Lenzi's first film of this genre, the first of four, I believe, to star Carol Baker, is Orgasmo. You might think that is a funny title. In Italian, that is the equivalent of titling a film Orgasm. Subtle. Some of these screen caps might be a bit saucy and or steamy, do be warned. Actually a rather disturbing film. Not an impressive production as the most acclaimed giallo are known as now, Bava, Argento, Fulci et al. In fact, Orgasmo is a racier remake of Pasolini's Theorem, it has been suggested. I'm sure Lenzi had conceptions or pretensions of being an artist. I presume he would have seen Pasolini's picture. The earlier parts of this picture would be enjoyed by viewers in 1969, many viewers, I imagine, for their sexual content as pornography, even if it did have ideals of artfulness. However, this film's second half has ensnared the viewer in erotic excitement and now punishes them for indulging in the urge. An odd mission statement. I'm unsure the politics of such a goal artistically, though it does make one consider the threat of sexual danger as something which the contraceptive revolution allowed to flourish further. It is a disturbing thought. Many of these Italian, or just European, sexually oriented horror films were essentially de facto porn, and even those that weren't necessarily, more an erotic thriller or explicit horror picture, were marketed and sold as porn, even if the intent from the filmmaker, Jesus Franco, Jean Roland, or Joe D'Amato, was evidently more than just recording intercourse. It isn't really inaccurate to assume that a 1970s film with so much gratuitous nudity or sexual content was trying to be artful more so than pornographic, but not only that the film could be attempting to be both. Whilst nowadays many of these films would be distinguished as erotic rather than pornographic, at the time there was something of a moral panic going on, and the contrarian response attempted to label all pornography as prospective art. I think at one time, particularly in the 1970s, certain art critics began to enjoy the idea of pornography being a subversive art form, although even to this day, especially to this day, it has never ever superseded being a business model. Even the function of behind the green door is clear, and the filmmaking merits overstated while we're at it. I think this, as well as the questionable ethical practice or politics of pornography, has prevented it from ever being considered true art. Although there were many films which utilized sexual content, being usually simulated for the sake of the dignity of their performers, and with the intent of being considered erotic, racy, or hot, even potentially masturbated to, although even when pornographers and porn stars then and now attempt to claim that their film will be more than porn or will elevate porn into art, they have still acknowledged a distinction. It isn't a cultural distinction, it is an economic distinction, frankly. I'm not sure I consider pornography to be art. I respect that it can serve a function during a certain transitional period in one's life, let's say, adolescence predominantly, And whilst I wouldn't deny a regular film could contain a potentially pornographic scene, if you're just trying to add artful photographic flourishes to a video one is intended to masturbate to, it is still pornography by default. I don't even think pornography is in and of itself immoral, although there is something inherently impolite about its production or usage. It can reduce both performer and consumer to a function far below their potential as human beings. Don't get me wrong, I'm not upset at Bella Danger and Chanel Hart appeared in a video together at one time, not at all, although televised sports isn't art. It serves a function. The sport isn't a work of art. A game may be great, and it isn't elevated into art just via filming it. And if Les Blanc or Werner Herzog filmed it, okay, it might become something more, but it was intended to be more. Much the same as the filming of an act of intercourse. Hey, some sex might be electrifying. A body might be mouth-wateringly feminine, fertile, flesh, skin, sweat. But no one on paper would structure a society wherein pornography is a hollow, minor, infrequent distraction at most, and even less so than that silly analogy of competitive sports. So what is the function of Lenzi's Orgasmo? If this is porn, it is demented videodrome porn, so what is it then? Think about what Wes Craven was going for in The Last House on the Left, Diodato in House at the Edge of the Park. Their desires to redo Bergman's The Virgin Spring were quite open. A part of The Virgin Spring's distinct affect is that rather disturbing feeling of sickness which permeates the runtime. I suspect this, as well as for Pasolini later with that horrifying effort Salo, inspired Lenzi on this film. It isn't erotic enough to be light porn, it isn't gory enough to be a splatter festival, so it is more of a psychological, ambient mood, ugly moods movie of sorts. It is a grueling, slower, delayed gratification thriller, perhaps too close to a potentially disturbing act of porno-adjacent skullduggery, because unfortunately it doesn't experiment with the medium enough to be consistently interesting as either a splatter carnival or a moody trip. It mostly functions in a basic, tense, sexual thriller sense, as the film might be imagined when described pitched on a piece of paper, with some decent, sometimes intriguing cinematography, thanks Guglielmo Mancori, but overall not one of Lenzi's very best, and what I've always considered the least interesting, ambitious, in a film respect, impressive, or imaginative of Lenzi's giallos, certainly of those of Carol Baker. The film's major appeal are things that if I reveal they would be spoilers. A twist really sneaks up on you and makes the rest of the film appear more impressive, although this is transient. Oh well, let's move on now.